Today, we are taking a look at Craig Conroy's to-do list and what he executed well here on Locked On Flames.
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Flames. As always, I am your host, Jess Belmosto, and thank you so much for joining me today. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Today, we're going to start the show with the memorial service that was held today, and then transition into the remainder of the offseason. It goes without saying that this heartbreak does, just because the services were today, that does not mean that the grieving, the pain, the legacy of the Gaudreau brothers stops here. This is always going to be a place for y'all to voice your feelings. And especially when it comes to grief, that's something that's super sensitive to me and important. And there's no right or wrong way to grieve. So, we're going to do what we can to get through this season and do our best to, make Johnny proud. And I am looking forward to hockey season. And, right now, this is an unfortunate spot to be in. And we're one day at a time, and, we'll trudge forward and get through it. But as always, I am here for you guys. The services for Johnny and Matthew were held today, and it was devastating. Meredith and Madeline gave eulogies, and I have never had to eulogize someone, but I cannot imagine the strength it takes to do it for anyone, whether it's a grandparent, a parent, a cousin, let alone someone you consider your soulmate. Meredith was up there for almost 40 minutes, and the John that she talked about was the John that we saw most of the time. But then there were other things, like just how I don't know if obsessed is the right word, but how in love he was with her, especially just right from the beginning. And the story of them at the wine vineyard, when her jokingly saying, like, oh, we're going to have 5 kids someday, and him not saying anything, but just like giving her hand an extra squeeze. Like it really is those little things that you'll remember forever. And Meredith is actually expecting. She is 9 weeks along, and what was supposed to be a family of 5 is now a family of 4. And it's just absolutely devastating that there are so many children here that are going to have to grow up without their fathers, and families that have just been ripped apart and destroyed. The alleged perpetrator, I should honestly just be thrown in jail and throw away the key. Like, I don't really see a punishment that's less than that. Like, and that's a whole different thing. But, it is so unfortunate to see so many people come together for these circumstances. You love to see it for happy occasions, right? For weddings, for birthday parties, for graduations. You don't want it to be for one of these, let alone 2. I feel nothing but sorrow for the family members. It was a beautiful service. We do not need to go around circulating pictures or clips of people leaving the funeral home. The eulogies are enough. And while this is a day of, I guess you could call it closure, it is never actually closure. Like I mentioned at the top of the show, this is always going to be a spot for conversation. The comment section, my Twitter DMs are always open as well, and my email's listed in my bio too. So like, I'm not a professional, but I sure know how to reminisce, and it's really hard, and it feels very strange just going back to talking about the Flames and like Jacob Markstrom being traded, because this is the first time I've sat down and like talked about something other than the loss of Matthew and Johnny in the 9 days since it's happened. So as always, you're more than welcome to grieve however you choose. So it's very, like, I'm very sad that this was even something we had to discuss. And we're going to talk about the one thing that Johnny did not love more than family. Almost as much as family, I should say. And that is the game of hockey. And right after this quick break, we are going to talk about Craig Conroy summer, the tasks he had, what did he do well, was there any missteps along the way that, or anything we feel to be his missteps in this current moment. And we will be right back after this. You've heard us talk about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. Just visit FanDuel.com. Download America's #1 sportsbook today. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out with me today as we transition back into off-season coverage that, there's still some stuff to do, believe it or not. We still have some things we need to do, Mr. Conroy. But what were some of the things that were on that list? Well, that Jacob Markstrom trade. There were some more pending UFAs. Dustin Wolf and the other RFAs. And the draft. The draft was like the first test in all of this. Truly, you don't have an idea of what your prospects or what your draft picks are going to turn into until it actually happens. But based on the scouting reports and everyone's reactions, everyone that makes those players cards said the Flames did a good job. So I am inclined to believe that they did a good job, and it's not just my own bias here. They had an incredible run at the draft. Zane Perrick at #9 overall, pretty good stuff. I was really hoping they were going to be able to get Tiege, but a young defensive prospect is a little bit, it's almost there. It's just as enticing. And it's great to see them, bulking up that blue line with players that are more than likely to graduate to the NHL on a steady traditional timeline. I really like that they didn't go too crazy with any, they weren't trading, they weren't doing anything that like compromised their position in the draft. I think that some teams I think they traded up once. I think maybe it was with Philly. And it at that point, it was so late in the draft that it didn't really matter, I guess. It wasn't going to impact you as significantly as it would have, say, in the first or second round. But for the Flames to hit the nail on the head at the draft was huge. We know the drafting has not been a strong suit for the Flames. We have seen what happens with most of these draft picks. And not every draft pick is going to be a Matthew Tkachuk. Not every draft pick is going to be a Cale Makar. That is not statistically possible. And while you hope you're able to land these players, it takes a lot of work to get them. And I think with the way things are trending in terms of the higher draft picks, I would say the Flames are doing a much better job now than they were even a year or two ago. We've seen what happens when you pick in the middle of that first round. There's a steep fall off with talent. And that is not a knock to players they have picked there. Because, you have to be talented in order to be an NHL player and go in the first round. So it's very interesting to me to see this approach to things, or not even the approach, the outcome of these things, when for years and years and years, it has been, this is, we're just going to take that, 16th overall pick. We're just going to take that 12th overall pick. Moving up 3 spots in a draft, in a year, it is pretty impressive. I don't think that they had intended, they didn't go into the season thinking they were going to be picking top 10, but I think this year that mentality has changed a little bit because this is a very different team that they're putting out on the ice, and I'm not upset about that. Yeah, it's not always going to be fun and exciting hockey to watch, but this is the medicine you have to take in order to get to the other side. And I talked about it last week with JD from Locked On Sharks, and he's a fantastic podcast host and just wonderful hockey mind. And he laid it out. This is the stuff you have to do in order to get those better players. You can't just expect to walk into the draft and pick in that chunky middle and say, well, I'm going to find, my Macklin Celebrini here. I'm going to find my Will Smith here. You picked Sam Bennett. You drafted Sam Bennett. And, they mismanaged that situation horrendously, which is something we can absolutely dive into at some point this season. because it's fascinating to me. And you end up having to trade him away because he doesn't want to play for you anymore, and you scratch him at right before warm-ups, and you don't tell him. But you need to have this stronger foundation than you did during those times. I think the Flames now have a very clear vision. I don't think that the water's like super murky and it's hard to get a read. I think that, this last year, Craig Conroy has come in and he has taken the reins. He has pulled up his big boy pants and taken the reins. This is something that the previous administration they couldn't or wouldn't do. This isn't about making everyone happy. This is about making business decisions and ultimately getting you to be one of the best, ultimately the best team in the league. And for Craig Conroy to come in as a first-time general manager and to do what he has done should be commended. I think it's absolutely, it's fascinating to me. Like, I feel like, especially when you were in-house for, those 9 years and you watched everything going on around you, you're going to see what goes over well, what does not go over well, what you would have done differently, how this was approached, how that was approached. And you kind of start laying out your own map, right? Like, I'm sure we've all been at work where it's like, well, I certainly wouldn't have handled that this way, or I would have gone about this project in a different manner. Like, there's multiple ways to skin a cat. But you learn what works and what doesn't. So I think Conroy having those years of experience within the organization has helped him. I think it has truly benefited him. He knows that he can't just be a yes man. He knows that this team is going to have to go through the trenches. And that's what it's going to be. And you're hoping you get there in time for your new arena. But coming up next, we are going to talk about free agency and some trades, because what this summer has felt like so long that I truly keep forgetting that Jacob Markstrom is no longer a Flame. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out with me today. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. We all knew, right, that the Jacob Markstrom trade was coming. It was just a matter of when. I think everyone, including Markstrom, expected it to happen around the trade deadline, and it did not. I don't really blame Markstrom for handling it the way he did. There's so much that goes into it on like a personal side of things that you just don't like, you can't just expect a player to be okay with it. And after basically authorizing the trade to happen and then being like, nah, never mind. But that trade ultimately opened up cap space, opened up a spot for Dustin Wolf, which everyone was kind of wondering how and when that was going to happen. And it did. And, obviously wish nothing but the best for Markstrom. I will never root for the Devils, but I will certainly root for Jacob Markstrom to have a good season. And same with Mangiapane. Mangiapane went to the Washington Capitals, and obviously his time in Calgary didn't pan out the way that a lot of us wanted it to. And I will never shut up about the 2021-2022 season. You will never, like, if I stop talking about that, I need you all to understand that it is a dire situation on our hands. But he did what he did, and he got traded. He was not looking to stay in Calgary long term. Craig Conroy did this out of the blue. Mangiapane said that, we expected this to happen, but just not then. I mean, hey, that's what's so different about Craig Conroy to me. While he is such like a nice guy and personable, and everyone talks so highly of him, and just his like interpersonal relationship skills, he is not afraid to like he will rip that band-aid off without any hesitation, and that's good. You need a general manager that is aggressive but not like overzealous, and I think that there's a great balance of, I love and respect you as a teammate, as a member of this organization, but if it makes sense to trade you, I'm going to. I mean, and I think that that's a very different dynamic than the Flames have had in 10 plus years. So it's kind of interesting to see. And it's definitely something to keep an eye on, because I don't think that Conroy would ever be like overzealous and be like, I'm going to trade Rasmus Anderson and Mackenzie Weegar and get a 26-year-old prospect and a 4th round pick in return. Like that is very much Brad Tree living, and we have moved past that. A Rasmus Anderson trade, more than likely going to happen at some point. Mackenzie Weegar, I still don't buy into any of this, but that's that. So I am impressed with Craig Conroy in his first full year as a general manager. They got Kevin Ball, who is a 23-year-old defenseman and a 2025 first round pick. And then Mangiapane, you get that 2nd round pick. Like, the whole point of a trade and this transition period is to stack that draft capital, because you are going to need it. Do y'all remember 5 years ago? Probably now at this point, that's disgusting to think about. The Arizona Coyotes had like all of those 2nd round draft picks. I feel like something like that is going to happen with the Flames, because they're going to help take on some money. They're going to be that 3rd team involved in a trade. They have like $20 million in cap space. You just going to waste it? You better pick up the phone every time someone is calling. Hey, do you want to be this guy? Do you want to be in a 3-way trade? Like, what's up? And, their free agency was good too. They didn't sign anyone to didn't go out and sign Jake DeBrusk to a 7-year bajillion-dollar deal. There was no need to do that. They didn't get insanely older. They extended Sharon Govich. They continued on that path of, we need to get better and we need to get younger. And that's where they're at. And Craig Conroy spent wisely. And there was a report that came out the other day about Mark Giordano's camp giving the Flames a call saying, hey, do you want to, can he come home? And the Flames supposedly said no. We're not really interested, which stinks. But at the same time, that is a spot available for a younger player. And you have to, that's the thing. You have to think about it in that way. Because if it was Brad Treliving, I'm sure Brad Treliving would have said, here's $10 million. Here you go. Boom. Not really that much. And, Brad Treliving, I'm sure you are a wonderful person, but not a good general manager. They did sign Tyson Barrie to a PTO, which is interesting. Yeah. I really don't have many thoughts on that, simply because he's a body on the blue line. If they do sign him to, a 1-year contract, it'll probably be like $1 million, which sounds like crazy to say, like, oh yeah, just $1 million deal. But it's not going to be anything crazy. It'll probably be 1 year. The Flames still need defense. It doesn't matter. I do think that Tyson Barrie is not a good defenseman, but when you look at it, like, Gio's a lot older, a little bit slower, and more expensive. That's the word I was looking for, more expensive. And I don't think the Flames were looking to play that game. I think, they want to do low risk, possibly high reward situation here, and that's fine. Like, that's what PTOs are for. And I hope that everything works out for Gio. And Tyson Barrie, he does bring that veteran presence. What is the Calgary Flames if not veteran presence? But that's, camp starts up so soon, you guys. It is unbelievable to think like the summer is just gone. We finally get to watch a Flames game this month, and that is very exciting. Dustin and Wolf is going to get to play some hockey. We do love to see that. And, one day at a time. That's all you can do. And that will do it for me today here on Locked On Flames. I hope you all had a decent Monday. As a reminder, comments are open, DMs are open. You're not alone in any of this. It's not easy to just go from such a heavy, horrible situation to trying to be excited for this. And I am so sorry if it was awkward, because it certainly felt awkward. But, gotta move forward, and we will remember Johnny and Maddie in a, on the ice this season. And, yes, so make sure you are subscribed to Locked On Flames wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. I hope you all have a fantastic day, and I will see you all later.